All right, this video is on how energy moves through the different living things from the producers through the consumers. We're going to look at what is a primary producer, how do consumers get energy and nutrients. So primary consumers are also known as autotrophs, auto meaning self and troph meaning feeding. So it means self-feeder. They capture energy from non-living sources and convert it into forms living things can use. Primary producers, the first producers of energy-rich compounds that can be used later by other organisms. All life depends on primary producers. They're at the beginning of every food chain, at the bottom of every energy pyramid, and so on. So there's two kinds of primary producers, and they differ based on how they get their energy. Most primary producers that we're familiar with are going to use photosynthesis. And photosynthesis means using light to make food. So they take the energy from sunlight and convert carbon dioxide and water into carbohydrates and oxygen. And you can see the equation here down below. In places where there isn't any light, like on the bottom of the ocean floor, there still are primary producers in certain areas around these thermal vents you can see pictured here on the right. These organisms, they're bacteria primarily, and they do what's called chemosynthesis. And they produce food, carbohydrates, using chemical energy. So again, carbon dioxide and oxygen, along with energy from chemicals, in this case hydrogen sulfide is the source of the chemical energy, to produce carbohydrates and sulfur compounds. So again, here's our two different types of primary producers and the two energy sources, light and chemical energy. So we have the producers. Now we have to talk about the consumers, the things that can't make their own food, that have to eat something else. We call these, in general, heterotrophs. They must acquire energy from other organisms. So organisms that rely on other organisms for energy and nutrients are consumers. And there's different kinds of consumers. There are the carnivores that eat other consumers or eat animals, usually what we say. Herbivores eat producers. A lot of times they're eating plants. And omnivores can eat both producers and consumers. We fall in the omnivore category. There are other kinds of consumers that have to do with dead and decaying material. There are the decomposers that break down dead material and produce detritus. Detrivores feed on detritus and recycle nutrients back into the soil. The decomposers do as well. And scavengers feed on dead organisms, like the vulture here. So decomposers and detrivores, things like the earthworm is a detrivore. The decomposers are like mushroom, like fungus and bacteria primarily.